Hello everyone, this is Chase Pounds. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing about, as part of my Halloween edition, vampires. Now, and, vampires have been a part of, have been a universal part of folklore, stretching across time and through all countries. Many countries have believed in the idea of the dead coming back to life. Sometimes this may be zombies, vampires, ghosts, which vampires is the subject I'm going to be discussing about. Um, Particularly in many countries, there have been different origins of blood sucking animals, or I guess creatures, animals, or people, people. Sometimes, as I said, people or animal, or is a creature or a monster of some sort, or a demon that comes back from the grave and feeds on the living. Um, and People even think that, and I'm not saying this is true, but people have, I guess, paranormal experts or debunkers have said that even the Bible is an example of vampire activity, such as this crucifixion of Jesus Christ. To some may think that it's a vampire story, though I don't believe it myself. Of course, it doesn't line to what I've been taught in my Christian teachings. And well, the element of that is Jesus dies, he comes back, he comes back alive, and of course, uh, and of course, there's the drinking the blood, but that's still, in my opinion, doesn't have anything to do with vampirism, the blood of Christ, but that doesn't have anything to do with vampirism. But some people use it as an example, vampirism, and a lot of times, I think mainly between I think medieval or Middle Ages, I should say Middle Ages, or the between the the colonial times, uh, I guess the Reformation period. There was the belief in vampires was prevalent, especially throughout medieval, medieval Europe. As there were cases of epidemics, which most people would claim that these vampire epidemics were really medical, of vi- medical, or I should say, virus or I guess viral occurrences. Viruses such as there were outbreaks of maybe tuberculosis or smallpox that were often attributed to these cases of suspected vampirism. But at the time, when there was a lack of science, medical knowledge of science, there was nothing to turn to but the belief in some paranormal or supernatural. And a lot of times, vampirism used the culprit, or was thought to be the culprit of these outbreaks. A lot of cases involve people was who were thought to who have been attacked by a person, physically physically draining out their, I guess, their draining out their energy, or sometimes maybe draining out their blood of some sort. And a lot of times the people would die themselves, and sometimes they would come back from the dead and, I guess, stalk the living in a way, kind of an ongoing cycle of occurrences in a way of an epidemic. This will kind of perpetuate the standard vampire folklore. If you are bent by a vampire, you become a vampire yourself, and you spread it on to the next person you encounter. And we'll also tie in with werewolf folklore, but some people say that's not authentic werewolf folklore, but that was something that was added into the movies in recent decades, and particularly the Wolfman film that came out in 1941. And a lot of times the town people would often go into the cemetery, the graveyards, and find the person that had been targeting the living, I guess, attacking people and feeding off their life source, their energy, and they would and a lot of times it was corpses that weren't already decomposed, that looked like they're still been in pristine condition, and they may have been out feeding on the living, and a lot of times they were suspected of being the vampire. A lot of times there'll be blood in the mouth, but a lot of times there's probably the decomposition of the body that was probably bloated, and blood would sometimes start ooze out. But a lot of times these were the suspected people that thought to be vampires, and a lot of times, fashion tradition that you probably see in films was that usually they would take a stake and hammer into the person said to be a vampire, and a lot of times with holy water and a crucifix, I guess, to ward off the evil intentions of the vampire. And it was kind of similar to, I guess, like with witchcraft. A lot of times a person that was wrongly convicted of witchcraft was a lot of times burned at the stake and executed, thought to be witches. But again, because of that period, there was a belief in the evil forces of supernatural occurrences that were mostly perpetuated by the church at the time. A lot of times there was no understanding of medical science, and they would turn to superstition to explain the way of strange occurrences. And a lot of times people would be wrongly accused of witchcraft and be burned at the stake or hanged. In this case here in Salem, Massachusetts, in the United States. And there are other stories that perpetuate vampire folklore. Of course, the most infamous was Vlad the Impaler, which is a picture of him. His name is Vlad the Impaler, who lived in Romania, a Romanian ruler, which Romania itself is particularly has a lot of origin in vampire, particular setting is a particular setting of vampire folklore, and place which you expect supernatural events to occur. And of course, it's known that he was a vicious ruler, and he impaled his enemies on a stake. the stake, and it was reportedly that he supposedly at the same time, there's a picture of it too, he had a lot of times would have his meals between when the victims were being impaled on the stakes, and it's been reported that he drank the blood of his victims, which that became the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula, and the vampire tales of the blood sucking comes from that, because it was literally sucking the blood of his victims while they were being impaled. Is said, often said, but it's not. I guess different interpretations say that. And he actually, not only that, he signed his name. This document said that he signed his name Dracula in blood in the document. Also, I guess adding to the supernatural aura of him in the vampire myth. And so forth, that became the inspiration for Bram Stoker's Dracula. It's even other inspirations when Bram Stoker was putting together his 1896 book Dracula. He based it on another similar tale of a queen. I forget her name. It was frequently mentioned in some documentary I've seen that she also tortured her servants and had a fetish for blood. She was known to use it as for cosmetic reasons, and it's actually been said that she actually bathed in blood, in a tub of blood, and she again tortured her servants, and in one of the documentaries actually bit the arm of one of the servants. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but it was depicted in one of the documentaries I've seen, and she was locked like this. As it's been discovered what she had done, she was locked in a I guess locked or imprisoned, I guess the rest of her life, I think, until she died. And that again became an inspiration for Bram Stoker's female I guess I'm looking for the female basis for Bram Stoker's Dracula, which in his book it features female vampires as well. He also see if I could pull a picture of this. And vampirism wasn't confined to just Europe. There was cases in the New World, and particularly New England and Rhode Island, of vampire activity. In the late 1890s, in Exeter, Rhode Island, this was also still heard of the same documentary Night Vigilance that mentions the Bell Witch. It also mentioned a vampire outbreak, but most people say it was at the time tuberculosis. At that time, it was called consumption. consumption, and a family. I think the Brown family was the victim of the suspected vampirism. Is where I think the mother had first died of the consumption. Some people say it was vampirism. Then it was the father. I think that no, it wasn't the father. I think it was the mother, the son, and then a 19-year-old girl named Mercy Brown, who was suspected of being a vampire, who was suspected of being the vampire who will visit people at night in their sleep, subconsciously in their sleep, and would attack them, particularly draining out their energy, I guess draining on their energy. And the next morning they would feel drained and I guess sluggish. I guess, but it may have been the effect of the tuberculosis. And they tried to find the root of the vampire by digging through the grave, and they just went through one of the graves, and it was just skeletal remains, and remains. But the next body they found was a Mercy, and Mercy, and there was she was found in pristine condition, not decayed, pristine condition, like she'd been freshly buried. But they were thinking that she went through that she was the person who rose from the dead and was stalking the living, attacking the living, and making them ill and sick. And they supposedly, I think, cremated the heart. They castrated the heart, they cremated it, and they made a potion and gave it to the son. I think his name was Edgar, to cure him of his disease, but unfortunately, it didn't really cure his illness, and he died shortly after that. But from that point on, there was no as the story goes, there was no suspected cases of vampirism in Exeter, Rhode Island from that point on. And there are other things that became the inspiration for Bram Stoker's novel, not just supernatural occurrence, but actual events that occur of the day that are taking place, such as he again, Bram Stoker, when he was writing his book, also based on social issues and events, such as the element of the female vampire, I guess, reflected women's liberation, women's rights at the time, as women were trying to gain place in society, especially with voting, I guess, work, just having the same opportunities as men, and equality as that men would have, and would have. Though the women wouldn't have the right to vote till 1920, though there were still other issues. Now, not just that at the time, but Bram Stoker would use, I guess, his female characters as examples of the attitudes at that time. He also based on fears the she would I mean he would base he based it off of other issues such as immigration, the fear of ethnic new races and ethnic groups coming to the New World, and and that was a theme of I think Bram Stoker's Dracula as well. They try to keep him in his hometown, keep him from having to, from coming to other parts of the world and trying to spread his vampirism to other people. And it was based on the fears of immigration of new races coming to the New world, which people were afraid of new ethnic groups that they weren't familiar with or thought were strange coming into the world that was once a dominant white Anglo-Saxon country. And I think that was some of the things that Bram Stoker's Dracula. I never really read the book myself, but that's information I heard in documentaries. It's always been speculated that he used the Jack the Ripper murders as a basis for Dracula as well, which Jack the Ripper was a I guess a news of the century for that time period, and was sensationalized in London, and was also stars were popular in America as well. And I guess like most artists, Bram Stoker used that also as a basis for his vampire character as well. Of course, also the issues of that time period with rampant diseases such as cholera, tuberculosis, smallpox, perhaps, were also part of the elements probably used in Bram Stoker's Dracula at a time where I guess medical science was trying to cure many diseases, though some was successful, but at the same time some was still, I guess, unknown or known to men at the time. And these could become some of the themes from Bram Stoker's novel Dracula. As I said, it will be published in 1896. And I'm not sure if it was a sensation when it first came. When it first was published, though some people, I guess, that were close to him thought it was a great form of work. Bram Stoker also would play later in his life would play in the would do a live theater play version of Bram Stoker's of his novel Dracula, though it was said that it was a failure, and I think he would die that same year in 1912, which was also I think around as I heard in the documentary, was the same week that the sinking of the same week of the sinking of the Titanic. It's been said that there was so much news about the shipwreck that it overshadowed his obituary. No, his death was overshadowed by the sinking of the Titanic, that many people missed his obituary. Then the first vampire film, silent film, was started